Hi, everyone. So I'm Varsha. I am VP of Cloud FinOps Management at Chubb. Prior to Chubb, I was in Prudential and Experian. So I have like 2.5 years plus of experience in Cloud FinOps. I am, as Rob mentioned, I am a FinOps certified FinOps professional. I just got my certifications this year, like 1st of January. Um, and then I'm also a FinOps Foundation ambassador for North America region. Um, I am 6x AWS certified. So that's me. Um, so let's dive in. So basically, the two types of optimization in cloud is classified like broadly in two types, right? One is rate-based, another one is resource-based. Rate-based is basically we deal with RI, savings plans, come up with strategy, pricing model, like how much percentage of 1 year savings plans or 3 year savings plans we want to do, or RIs, and then leave a few percentage for resource-based optimization, because we have to always be careful about the peaks and valleys in our day-to-day model. So that's rate-based optimization. Resource-based is basically looking at the service, looking to see how much or how can we reduce the cost, because as Rob mentioned, it's not cloud is mostly like what you run, like not what you need. So having that in mind, resource-based optimization is very important, because what happens is um, this actually happened to me. So when I was in my previous role, uh, I was in the process of cleaning up EC2 long-running instances, which these were instances running over like 2 years. And I just looked at non-prod because I didn't even get into prod. And then when I was looking at non-prod environment, I realized that there were a couple of EC2 instances that was named named by the person who had created it, and that person had quit the firm like a year and a half. So it was still running, but nobody had a clue that these EC2 resources still existed. So this is more like a detective phase, right? So I detected it. Now, what would be my next steps? One is to remediate, and the other one is to make sure that there are policies that doesn't let these kind of resources spinning for long term. So like I mentioned, the strategy is first we detect, we remediate, and then we prevent. So in detection is like I mentioned, we can look at like a POC. So I call it like 4 steps, where the first step is always like doing the analysis and seeing where which service is spending more, which resource is spending more, which region or which environment type. So when we have a good understanding of what's going on and understanding of the billing mechanism behind those services, it gives us a clear understanding of steps that we need to take during remediation and prevention. So that's the first analysis phase. And then the POC phase is when we manually go and then take like you know, a lower a resource in a non prod environment, like a lower tier, to make sure like the testing, whatever we are testing, is actually, giving us the value. Are we able to convert potential savings into realized savings? So once that's done, we've done it, we've done a manual approach, so we understand the process. And then the next stage is basically remediation, right? Like I don't want to be doing this day in and day out the same thing, because I want to move on to the next service or next opportunity. So that's where remediation and prevention comes into play, where we set up, using Cloud Custodian, we can set up like rules where we detect all these kinds of unused or underutilized resources, and then we follow like what remediation process can be done. Do we want to send out an email, or do we want to like delete these resources after a certain time frame? So that's more about the remediation. And then the prevention is, okay, so we don't want certain expensive resources to be spun up by everybody in every region or in every area. So then, okay, if somebody really needs it and then they have a business case, then they can have an exception. But without an exception, automatically people cannot go and spin these resources. So that's where cloud custodians come into play. I'm going to walk you through some of the sample YAML or cloud custodian rules that I have used in the past. So the first one is unused resources, right? So if you look at it, this policy is basically used to identify unused EC2 resources. So they can look back like 14 days or 30 days, or like for some I've gone through this. For some, BUs, it could be 90 days, right? Because their, EC2s might come up quarterly, but then most of the time they may not be using anything. So, we can set the time frame and then look for these EC2 instances. Now, when we have these EC2 instances, next step is what we need to do first. So first is to let the account owner or the business unit know that, hey, you have these resources and they are not being used. Can we like delete them? Can we stop them? Or, depending on their usage, depending on their app, what can be done? Or can we reduce them, resize them? So that's about unused resources for EC2. The next one is underutilized resources, right? Like where, we use a specific metric, like, for example, CPU utilization. Are we, looking for EC2s that are barely used or minimally used, but then they're running, like they're being up and running. So they do cost, right? It's not like they're stopped and then you be stopped or terminated where we get either very less or zero spend. So this is very important, right? Because then you can notify the owners and say, hey, are you really using it? Why can't you use like auto scaling? Or can we like change it and then like change the type? Or do we want to like use filter on specific EC2 types, families like T2 or 3.3 or the most expensive GP2 or GP3s? And this is also an opportunity where we have these lower types. Can we upgrade them to the latest version of Graviton? Data retention policy is another one where, like Rob mentioned, we get like cloud. Nobody's going to tell you like you can keep ingesting your logs, right? As opposed to data center. So what happens, like as we keep ingesting, we're spending a lot of money on the retention and the ingestion, right? So how are we going to handle these logs? Are we going to like change the different tiering? Are we going to like delete them permanently? Are we going to archive them? So that custodian plays a vital role in setting up policies in detection and remediation. And then the last one is EFS. This is one of my favorite ones. If you have ever heard my talk, I talk a lot about EFS. So EFS why is it so close to my heart is because, there are two modes, provisioned mode and there's another mode. So what happens in provision mode is if the default value is 1024. So what I've seen in my experience is people go in and then they set up at the max, or the default value as 1024, assuming that it's going to help them. But it may not necessarily help you, but it's going to drain a lot of money because if you set an EFS in a US East region, you're going to spend around $6,000 a month. But if you're spending it in regions like Brazil, you're going to like spend the double of it, which is $12,000 a month. So that quickly adds up to around 60 plus K a year. And it's not just that, it's just for one resource in EFS. So, people have to be aware of what the throughput, value that they're keying in is. Do they need a value lesser or do they need a value greater than like 500 or 400 or 300, right? So for a non-prod environment, setting it up at like max as 500 would still reduce, because you're going to, even if somebody sets as 500, you're going to spend $3,000 as opposed to 6,000. So it makes a difference. And also like having a monthly report saying, hey, these are the resources that are set at a specific value of throughput, and this is the spend. That really helps to understand, do we really need this, or can we shut this down, or is the app or the team needs these, or can we like do a shared environment or shared infrastructure. So that really helps in key business decisions and cost savings. So that is it from me.